Hey guys, tonight we're headed down a red dirt road somewhere in the northern savannah of Nigeria. The sun is settling into a hazy yawn, and a cloud of soft dust trails behind your cart's wooden wheels. The donkey ears flick now and then, tail swatting the occasional fly. It's quiet in that deep end of day kind of way. You smell dry straw, charcoal fires in the distance, and something faintly sweet, fermented millet maybe, or overripe mango. You're nearing one of those way stations. A lone concrete slab, a sleepy tin-roofed shelter, and just beside it, a man in a green shirt, frayed at the collar, who raises one open palm as you approach. This story might spark your curiosity, or just put you gently to sleep. Either way, I'm glad you're here. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop your location and the local time in the comments. I love seeing where everyone's tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive slowly. The hooves of your donkey make that soft clop 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 that seems to echo through the last remaining heat of the day. There's no sign, no official flag, no electronic scale with a blinking green display. This is not a way station, like the highway ones in the glossy logistics manuals. Here, it's a gently uneven concrete slab, hand-poured, rimmed by makeshift metal rails that have more rust than paint. And next to it, a chair that might once have belonged to a classroom, half swallowed by dirt. The waymaster is already watching you. His palm is up, held out like a sleepy crossing guard, fingers wide but relaxed. That's the first signal, the universal one, they say, the one that says, pause, let the weight of the moment settle first. You stop, gently pulling the frayed rope harness. Your donkey gives you a resigned sigh, like it knew this was coming. You both wait. It's part of the ritual. The waymaster, today it's Uncle Musa, though last week it was Auntie Halima, tilts his head just slightly, then lowers the hand by an inch. Still open, still slow. It's not permission yet. It's more like the station itself is breathing in first. The handbook, the one no one can find anymore, written on stapled paper and now mostly rumor, once listed this gesture as standard hold signal all approaches. But even in that now yellowed manual, there's a footnote, use at discretion, palm angle may vary by region and mood. The breeze shifts. You hear chickens clucking somewhere behind the shelter. Someone's boiling water over a charcoal stove. The air smells faintly of engine grease and sun-warmed rubber. Still the hand stays up. And you wait. That's part of it. These way stations aren't about speed. They're about rhythm, tradition, trust. The unofficial time it takes to let everything and everyone, including your donkey, settle into a weighable state. Eventually, the palm begins to lower, not all at once. Just a gentle tilt downward, like a leaf giving up its grip. That's your cue. You move forward again, slowly. One of the lesser-known quirks of this particular way station is the left rail. It's slightly bowed outward thanks to a goat incident 2 years ago. The station manual never updated the safety protocol. So now, everyone just avoids the left rail. You do too. You guide your cart in from the right, wheels sliding into a pair of dusty grooves that have been carved into the concrete through years of repetition. The scale is purely mechanical. A giant lever arm balanced by rusty weights and a wheel crank that's only partially attached. There's no digital anything, just the practiced eyes of the waymaster and a dusty chalkboard for scribbling numbers. Uncle Musa makes no move yet. His hand is now behind his back. Here's a procedural fact most travelers miss. The donkey must stand still for 3 whole seconds before the reading begins. It's not written down anywhere, not even in the mysterious, supplemental cartload reference guide, 1989 edition, that occasionally makes its way out during dry season audits. But everyone knows it. You know it. Your donkey, bless her tired knees, knows it too. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3. Then, suddenly, the waymaster scratches the side of his neck. That's not a signal. That's just a mosquito. Important distinction. You stay still anyway. There's a lot of staying still in this work. Patience is the first unofficial rule. The second rule? Never assume the waymaster is signaling unless they repeat the motion. That saved many a traveler from unloading prematurely. or from interrupting a sneeze. The first time you came here, you thought the upturned palm meant, hi. It doesn't. It means, halt. The Waymaster rarely waves hello. A nod is more their speed. Sometimes just a grunt. And as for that donkey cart? There's a cloth bag tied under the axle. It contains 3 spare ropes, 1 bent metal pin, and a mango pit you keep forgetting to toss. No regulation against mango pits. But if one rolls out during weigh-in, you'll get a raised eyebrow. Or worse, a double eye rub, a rare gesture which, while not officially codified, generally means, you again? But tonight's calm. Your load, sacks of dried maize and 2 baskets of guavas, is properly stacked, tied with twine, and balanced with a little left lean to account for that flat wheel you've never fixed. As the last light fades behind the tamarind tree, you exhale. You made it. The way station accepted you. The palm is lowered. The slab doesn't crack. The donkey hasn't sneezed. And Uncle Musa clears his throat, stepping forward with the slowness of someone who's done this 1,000 times and knows that weight is more than just numbers. You're still on the slab, barely moving. Not that you have a choice. Your donkey seems to have fused herself to the earth. Legs locked, tail motionless except for an occasional flick like a punctuation mark at the end of an invisible sentence. And then you see it. The one finger flick. It's fast, subtle, maybe a reflex, or maybe Musa's signaling you. This is one of the more ambiguous gestures in the unofficial signal book. Just a single index finger, flicked forward, but here's the catch, it only means, approach slowly if it starts from the left hand. From the right hand, it could mean, your load's uneven, or, wait for chalk, or in some dialects of Waymaster shorthand, I dropped my pen. You squint. Was it his left hand? Or just a scratch again? The sun's dipped low now, casting long shadows that play tricks on your eyes. But your instincts say left hand. So you click your tongue twice, your donkey cue for, just a little nudge forward, and the cart obeys with a gentle creak and a generous sigh from the harness straps. Musa doesn't stop you, which is a good sign. Or at least not a bad one. In these stations, there's no buzzer, no red or green lights. Everything is interpreted through palms, posture, and patience, and flicks. Oh, the flicks. Everyone has their own style. Some Waymasters flick like they're shooing a cat. Others flick as if brushing lint off an invisible waistcoat. Musa's is more thoughtful. He pauses before the flick, like he's consulting a mental flowchart that includes the weather, your donkey hoof alignment, and the current mood of the scale. Fact: the original 1983 Waystation training notes, typed on a German-made Olivetti and passed around like urban legend, include exactly 3 approved hand gestures. But field reports over the years have catalogued 17 variations, each with at least 2 sub-meanings depending on the angle of the wrist. And nobody talks about the ghost flick. That's when the Waymaster starts a flick but aborts halfway through. It's caused more cart jams and donkey tantrums than anyone admits. A traveler once camped overnight beside the slab after misinterpreting a ghost flick as a full proceed signal. The donkey ate half a tarp in protest. You're still moving, barely. The wheel crunches over a small pebble that makes the whole cart shimmy. Your left guava basket leans too far. Instinctively, you reach to adjust it. And that's when Musa raises 2 fingers. Not vertical, not a peace sign, just a gentle angle, almost forming a checkmark. You freeze. You've reached the almost zone, the place where the cart is technically on the slab. But the donkey back hooves aren't quite aligned with the faded yellow marker painted long ago with surplus school paint. You wait. The wind picks up slightly. A bit of maize husk swirls by, then settles again. This is when most people fidget. You don't. Not anymore. Because you remember the old saying, he who fidgets in the way zone shall repeat the whole approach. No one wants that, especially not your donkey, especially not you. Another procedural detail floats to mind. Once the cart is halfway onto the slab, all further movements must be initiated by Waymaster signal. Any unsanctioned donkey adjustment counts as tampering. Of course, the manual doesn't define tampering very well. The footnote simply reads, see page 9 for exceptions. Page 9 missing. You shift your weight subtly to the left. The donkey mirrors you. Years of quiet training pay off. Her hooves ease into place. The slab creaks under the full weight. Musa lowers the 2 fingers slowly. That's a good sign. That's the confirmed alignment motion. No applause. No bell. Just the quiet nod from a man who's probably measured more grain in his life than most people eat in a year. He reaches behind the scale shed and pulls out a thin rod with color markings: red, blue, green. You've only seen the red end used. Supposedly, blue is for medicinal loads. Green, no one remembers. He taps the red end once against the concrete. Another signal. Check wheel position. You glance down. Left front wheel is in the groove. Right rear wheel's a little off. But here comes the quirk. In this station, a wheel may be 7 centimeters off as long as the cart is facing northwest. Why? No one knows. Probably has something to do with the direction the wind carries the chalk dust. And now for the unresolved part. Musa walks back to the shed. Disappears for a second, then returns holding a small pouch. It jingles. Probably coins. Or stones. Or maybe it's the official counterweight beanbag from the 1990s set. Filled with dried cowpeas. No one's opened it in years. He sets it gently on the corner of the slab. Then, without looking at you, flicks 1 finger again. From the right hand this time. You pause. Is this a test? You don't move. Good call. He does it again, left hand now. Definitely a signal. You breathe out and relax. You've passed the flick test. The donkey takes 1 step back to stabilize. You don't even need to guide her. And so you're there now, fully aligned. Fully present. Fully uncertain what half the gestures mean. But that's the rhythm here. Quiet cues. Waiting games. Shared language built from dust. Eyes. And the occasional ghost flick. The sun is just aglow now. Like someone dimmed the whole world's brightness dial. You feel it in the back of your neck. That dusty warmth turning to evening cool. Your donkey shifts slightly, 1 ear twitching, and somewhere behind the way shed, a radio crackles a few bars of high-life music before sputtering back to silence. And that's when you see it, the thumb over shoulder move. It's a firm gesture. No flick or flutter. Just Musa's right thumb hooked smoothly back over his own shoulder. Then held for a beat like punctuation. The meaning is clear, detour around. But here's the secret. This signal only activates when there's already someone waiting in the queue zone, and right now. That queue consists of a parked cart full of firewood. Abandoned hours ago and watched over by a goat with a suspicious gaze. Still, the thumb over shoulder applies. You steer gently to the side, following the rutted half-path along the slab's edge, your cart making a sound like a drawer being dragged open in a house no one's lived in for years. Musa watches, impassive, but you can tell, he appreciates the smooth maneuver. It's an art. Not every cart driver can dodge a ghost queue without knocking their yams overboard. A procedural note drifts to mind. According to the 1975 National Draft Outline for Rural Load Sequencing, a document photocopied so many times its typeface looks like breadcrumbs, the thumb over shoulder is only valid if paired with neutral stance. Which means both feet flat on the ground and no visible chewing. Musa meets the criteria. You complete the maneuver. Now circling back to the slab from the western edge. The path is lined with old tire tracks and one surprisingly resilient bougainvillea bush. There's a plastic bottle half buried in the dirt. Your donkey avoids it with practiced disinterest. And just as you angle toward the slab again, the signal changes. 2 palms, held still in front of the chest. Oh no, the infamous double palm pause. This signal means, wait until further notice. It's not aggressive, not even urgent, it's just timeless, like he's pressing the pause button on the entire evening. And here's the trick, once the double palms appear, you must not move anything. Not a wheel, not your foot, not even your donkey tail. If you can manage it. Legend has it that during a particularly windy harmattan season, a driver ignored the double palm pause and tried to realign his bag of groundnuts. The station ruled the way void, and he had to loop around the village twice before being readmitted. The manual mentions this signal only vaguely, under a section titled Holding Patterns and Nonverbal Overrides. It doesn't explain the cause, but hints that delays may arise due to shadow interference. document unavailability, or simply emotional reconsideration. Tonight, you suspect the delay is due to chalk shortage. Musa walks to the shed. Returns. Walks back again. He's doing the classic chalk check shuffle. It involves 3 steps. Pat shirt pocket. Glance into air. Return to shed. He does this 3 times. You notice the donkey has started dozing. One eyelid low. Jaw soft. You can relate. And then you hear it, a clink. Chalk found. It's pink. Not ideal, but acceptable. White is standard. Yellow is ceremonial. Pink is rare. It means the other sticks probably got wet in last week's storm. He breaks the chalk stick cleanly, snap, and you realize you've passed another checkpoint. But the hands are still up. Now here's the quirk. When the palms are held longer than 1 minute, it sometimes implies that the weighmaster is performing what's known locally as a calm check. A calm check involves assessing whether the cart driver, donkey, and load are all in equilibrium. It's not based on science. It's based on vibes. If you're fidgety, or if the donkey keeps sneezing, or if the maize bags look shifty, Musa might keep you there for up to 7 minutes. So, you still, you breathe, you even whisper something calming to the donkey, something about yams and restful sleep. Eventually, the palms lower. You're released from way limbo. You guide the cart forward just enough for the front wheel to rest in the central groove. It clicks softly, settling into place like a final jigsaw piece. You've reached what's unofficially known as prime slab. The chalkboard is lifted. Musa writes something. 3 numbers. Then a symbol that may or may not be a goat. It's hard to tell. The manual, when it was last updated, said Waymasters should use Arabic numerals. But Musa prefers a hybrid script. Part shorthand, part pictogram. You've gotten good at deciphering it. The swirl with a tail usually means basket with potential spillage. Then he turns to you and gives the subtlest of nods. That means, you're doing fine. And even though no one else is here, no audience, no timer running, you feel it, like getting a gold star in a school that only hands out chalk. You belong here, on this slab, at this station, with a donkey who dreams standing up and a man who communicates entire decisions with his thumbs. The sun has nearly vanished now. What's left is a long ribbon of light, barely holding the sky open. And everything else, your cart, the shed, even the weighmaster's shoulders, feels like it's leaning into the evening. The air is cool enough that you can finally breathe without tasting the day's heat. Your donkey hasn't moved in 5 full minutes. That's either a sign of deep trust or deep exhaustion. And then comes the next signal. A small movement, easy to miss unless you're trained for it, a slow, circular tap of the wrist. Not the knuckles, not the forearm, just the flat side of one palm gently tapping the opposite wrist in a slow, round rhythm. You watch closely. That's not a fidget. That's intentional. It means something. This signal is known locally as reset pending. It's a soft reminder that the scale, yes, the old, creaky, counterbalanced beast under your wheels, needs a moment to settle. Or possibly, Musa needs a moment to settle. In this world, the line between machine and man often blurs. Technically, the procedural manual from 1988 lists this gesture under time-based indicators. Subsection C.4 reads, circular wrist gestures denote delay of unknown length. Advise driver to conserve energy. And so you do. You settle your elbows onto your knees. Your back eases into the cart frame. The donkey sighs again, a deep, rubbery exhale through the nostrils. Even she's figured out this one. The wrist tap could mean many things. Perhaps Musa's waiting for the scale dial to drift back to neutral. Or maybe he's mentally calculating an estimate, adjusting for wind, axle lean, and whether the baskets are tied with synthetic rope or traditional jute. Or, and this happens more often than you'd think, lunch was late. And he's simply giving his digestive system a moment to regroup. Quirk, at this station, there's a superstition that if a cart is weighed while the weighmaster has hiccups, the reading is considered spiritually imbalanced. Nobody will say this out loud. But you've noticed, if Musa's been eating groundnut soup, there's a 50% chance of the wrist tap delay. You lean back. The cart creaks gently. The scale beneath you groans. Then stills. Nearby, a goat bleats half-heartedly. like it's forgotten the second verse of its own song. Musa steps forward, not quickly, not slowly, just with that practiced glide of someone who's walked the same 8 meters of ground every day for 12 years. He checks the base of the scale, bends down, flicks something, you hear a clack. Now here's your procedural detail. Most rural Nigerian donkey cartway stations use pendulum counterweight mechanisms. These rely on tiny internal pins that sometimes jam if exposed to excess humidity. Musa has a stick for that. It's not in the manual. But every good weighmaster has one. His is wrapped in green electrical tape and labeled, "Do not touch," even if curious. He uses the stick to adjust a single copper pin, then nods to himself, satisfied. But here's where things get odd. He doesn't give a hand signal to proceed. Instead, he just sits down. That's not part of the official signal set. You look to the donkey, then back at him. The donkey blinks once, which you interpret as, "Not my department." So you wait, and finally, after what feels like 2 whole verses of the silent goat's internal song, Musa raises his right hand halfway, then taps his chest. That's new. You've never seen that one. It's not in the manual. Not even in the oral updates shared at last year's Weighmaster's Tea. Could this be one of those personal signals? Every weighmaster, eventually, develops a few. Some tap their nose for, "Check your axle." Others whistle with one nostril to indicate, "Watch the bucket." But a chest tap? You choose not to act. Just to be safe. Which turns out to be smart. Because Musa follows it up with a second, clearer signal, a half clap. Ah, here we go. This one's infamous. The half clap is exactly what it sounds like, 2 hands that move toward each other. Stop an inch apart, and never quite meet, like a polite applause for a show that never started. It means confusion, or caution, or that Musa's trying to remember whether he already weighed you. In the absence of a full clap, the manual's guidance is to await clarification via secondary gesture. So you sit still. Again. The donkey has now leaned fully into the harness, like she's trying to become one with the leather. And then, finally, Musa smiles faintly, just a lift at the corner of his mouth, and gives the tiniest flick of chalk dust off the board. That's the signal. You're good. Weight confirmed. Marked. Logged. No objections. The chalkboard now reads something that resembles a 9, a backwards L, and possibly a smiley face. You've learned not to ask. Now here's the unresolved bit. Every station has a notebook of anomalies, a thin logbook where weightmasters jot down anything odd, a cracked axle, a cart with suspiciously scented baskets, a donkey with heterochromatic eyes. Tonight, Musa opens the book, writes a single word, then shuts it. You never find out what it says. You just hope it wasn't about the mango pit still rolling under your axle. You shift slightly on the wooden seat of your cart, just enough to feel a knot in the rope press against your side. The donkey flicks an ear as if to remind you, she's still waiting too. Around you, the sounds of evening deepen, crickets tuning up, a dog barking once in the distance, the rustle of something small in the brush behind the weigh shed. But the slab remains the center of gravity, your temporary stage, and Musa the conductor. And now, finally, comes the strangest signal of the evening. Palm down, wiggle fingers. It's subtle, gentle, almost dance-like. Musa stretches his arm slightly forward, palm facing the dusty slab, then lets his fingers wiggle like he's mimicking a lazy breeze. This gesture isn't listed in the national manual. It's not even in the expanded regional gesture guide compiled during that big 2006 meeting in Sokoto where 30 weighmasters sat in folding chairs and argued over chalk storage policies. No, this one belongs solely to Elder Bakura, only used on Thursdays. And tonight, blessed be your luck, is Thursday. According to local lore, Elder Bakura started using the palm wiggle to signal, unload halfway. Not fully, not a single bag more than halfway. And never the bottom layer. Only the top. Why? Some say he had a sore back and wanted lighter checks. Others claim it was symbolic, some spiritual metaphor about balance and giving just enough. Regardless, the tradition stuck. And Musa, a former apprentice of Bakura, seems to have adopted the quirk out of respect, or possibly habit. So now you've got a decision to make. The cart holds 5 sacks of maize and 2 shallow baskets of guavas. Still soft and maybe slightly overripe. To unload halfway, you'd need to tip 1 guava basket and untie 2 top bags. Procedural detail. You're allowed 1 full retie per session. Anything more, and the scale resets. And no one wants to deal with a full reset this late in the day. You ease down from your seat, stretching your legs with a quiet groan. The ground is cool under your feet. Fine dust curling up with every step. The donkey turns her head slightly to follow you, out of mild curiosity. Or maybe just to see if you've brought a carrot. You haven't. You climb up beside the cart's left rail and begin untying the jute rope. The knot gives with a practiced tug. You lift 1 sack, lean it gently against the cart's edge, then slide the second one forward just enough to suggest, "See? I'm cooperating." A few guavas tumble lazily into your palm. You set them aside on a folded cloth. Far from the slab, Musa nods. Barely, but you catch it. That's his version of applause. Then he moves, slowly, grabs a chalk shard, and here's the procedural moment you've been waiting for, the midpoint chalk mark. It's a diagonal stroke on the edge of the slab, meant to represent the estimated halfway load for visual calibration. Not scientific, but trusted. He draws it, dust rises, then he steps back again. You've officially entered half-load mode. This mode is spoken of in hushed tones. Because it's a gamble. If the donkey shifts, if the guavas roll, if even a feather lands on the cart, rebalancing required. And the quirk here? This particular station was built with a slight southward tilt, supposedly to help rainwater drain. But it means your left wheels are always a bit higher. Half-loads lean harder here than anywhere else in the region. You adjust one of the sacks again, making sure it rests fully inside the cart's shadow. Yes, shadow positioning is a thing. The unofficial rule says, if your load falls outside its own shadow after 5 p.m., it must be weighed again. You heard that from Auntie Halima once, and no one ever contradicted her. Back to the weighmaster now. Musa raises 1 hand, finger curled slightly, an unscripted flourish that often means almost there. You take that as your cue to retake your seat. The donkey, loyal and immovable, shifts just enough to feel the shift in tension. She's ready. Then comes the unresolved part. Musa reaches into his vest pocket and pulls out a button. A single, matte black button. He looks at it, turns it over, then pockets it again. You've seen this before. Once a month or so. The button comes out. No one knows what it means. Some believe it's a memory token, a ritual to recall an old cart. Or a friend now gone. Others say it's just a worry piece. A tactile anchor in a day of ambiguous gestures and heavy grain. The manual, of course, is silent on buttons, and so you sit, uncertain whether something significant just happened or nothing at all. The chalkboard now has 2 marks, the earlier goat-like swirl. And now a small square. Filled in, that might represent the half-load. Or your guavas, or simply a mosquito he swatted with the chalk. You don't ask, you just wait. Then, Musa gives you the old standby. Index finger hover. That's next. But we'll get to that one soon. For now, the half-load is registered, the slab has held, the donkey has behaved, and you've survived Elder Bakura's legacy without tipping a single guava. Not bad for a Thursday. It starts subtly. You wouldn't even call it a gesture at first. More like hesitation dressed up as movement. Musa raises 1 hand again, right this time, and extends his index finger. But instead of pointing at something, he simply holds it there, hovering above the docket, as though trying to coax a thought from the surface. The index finger hover. Ah yes, the signal of signals. This one is as much a performance as it is a communication. It doesn't rush. It doesn't commit. It lingers. And that's exactly what it's meant to do. Among the dozens of procedural cues passed down orally between waymasters, the index finger hover is reserved for moments of ambiguity, specifically when the donkey appears too twitchy. And yours, bless her weary soul, just chose this exact moment to stamp a back hoof with just enough energy to shake a single guava loose. The guava rolls, not far, maybe 6 inches, but it's enough. Musa hovers the finger a little higher. You can almost hear the word unspoken, Let's talk procedure. according to Appendix D Section 3 of the Regional Cartload Conduct Handbook. In the case of equine restlessness or unexpected hoof behavior during a partial weigh, the attending official may invoke a stabilization delay via index hover. Of course, donkeys aren't equines, but no one's ever bothered to correct the terminology. Most of the manual's authors were based out of a university where the closest thing to livestock was a bronze goat statue. You hop off your cart again, slowly, as protocol demands, and retrieve the runaway guava. It's still intact. A little dusty, sure, but nothing a cloth won't fix. You gently place it back into the basket, whispering something conciliatory to your donkey. And here's where we hit an obscure quirk. This weigh station, unlike most others in the region, follows a 3-quiver rule. If the donkey shifts more than 3 times during the chalking process, the entire load must be represented in reverse order. Nobody wants that. Not you, not your donkey, not even Musa, especially not Musa, because if he has to redraw the chalkboard symbols backwards, he'll need to fetch the mirror stick, a handheld mirror duct taped to a piece of firewood, used for reflective ledger transcription. It's more symbolic than functional, but still, it takes time. So you hold your breath. The donkey does not move. Your guavas behave. In Musa? He slowly lowers the hovering finger. Satisfied. This, more than any shout or buzzer, is your green light. You settle back onto your cart, resuming your classic weighing posture, elbows in, knees loose, expression somewhere between reverence and resignation. And then, Musa makes the big move. Both arms rise, then fold, above his head, the X of doom. Okay, maybe not doom, but certainly delay. You feel it in your spine. The both arms crossed above head signal is the most dramatic in the entire Weighmaster canon. It appears in only one place in the manual, page 11. Next to a blurry photo of a man doing the pose beside a cow that looks equally confused. The official meaning? Come back tomorrow. Or, we're out of chalk. Or sometimes, there's been an administrative reset. What caused this one? Could be anything. A crack in the chalk, a ledger discrepancy, a subtle breeze that moved the guava again. Or maybe Musa simply remembered he left the iron pot on the charcoal stove at home. You don't ask. You just wait. He holds the X for several seconds, then relaxes. And now, he does something you never expected. He shrugs. A full, unapologetic shrug, hands lifted, palms up, head tilted. You realize, he's tired. The day's slipping away. The slab's been used 7 times already today, once by a pair of overambitious schoolboys moving bundles of cassava in a wheelbarrow they weren't tall enough to push properly. Maybe Musa's just reaching the edge of today's patience ledger. Here's the unresolved part. The manual never specifies how many weighings a station is supposed to do in one day. There's no cap, no quota, only the phrase, as deemed reasonable by the officiating party. And what's reasonable can depend on everything from humidity to heartbreak. Musa lowers his arms, takes off his cap, fans himself once, then, mercifully, uncrosses the chalkboard. That's your soft reset. The station is not closed. You are not dismissed. Not yet. It's just paused. A moment of administrative shrug. You take a sip from your canteen, offer a few drops to the donkey. She declines, maybe out of pride. The wind picks up slightly. A rusted tin can rattles near the base of the slab. You glance at the tree line. No movement, just that stillness that settles after a long day of procedure, posture, and patience. Then, just before you're about to ask if you should unload the second half of your maze, Musa smiles, lifts one hand, and makes a sideways peace sign. But that's a story for next time. For now, the slab still holds, the load is stable, the donkey calm, and the Weighmaster has decided to keep going. The sideways peace sign catches you off guard. It's not flashy, not like the full arm X or the double snap, but it's intriguing. 2 fingers, angled just off horizontal, held in front of Musa's chest like he's about to deliver some cryptic message. And maybe he is. The sideways peace sign doesn't show up in most official manuals. It doesn't even make the cut in the 2003 Supplementary Visual Lexicon for low traffic stations. But those in the know, the longtime drivers, The elder waymasters, the donkey cart lifers, will tell you it's one of the softest signals with the sharpest meanings. Tonight, the message is likely this. Something's changed. We're proceeding, but not in the usual way. You've seen this once before. 2 seasons ago, a late evening check, just like this. A sideways peace sign followed by a re-way, a chalk remark, and then, unofficial overtime. And that's probably what this is about. Overtime's been cut again. Moose's station is supposed to shut down by sundown. That's the rule, not written, but mutually understood. After dark, the chalk goes damp, the scales lose sensitivity, and the donkeys? Well, they start acting like philosophers, standing still, chewing hay, staring into space like they've solved the meaning of life. But tonight, Moose holds the peace sign for 3 whole seconds, long enough for it to qualify as an affirmative variant. Which means, we'll finish this, but be quick. Procedurally, this triggers the final docket acceleration protocol, a fancy term for a simple process. Skip the minor way log, forego the pictogram, and record the rest using the station's shorthand system. Every station has one. Moose's is a marvel of minimalist logic. He uses 4 symbols. A line equals sack, a dot equals partial sack, a squiggle equals fruit basket, a small vertical dash equals donkey twitch during reading. Tonight's docket has 2 lines, 1 squiggle, and half a dash. You're doing fine. Now he gestures again, this time not with fingers, but with a small movement of his head toward the scale's corner bucket. Ah, here comes the hand-to-ear, eyes-closed maneuver. This one always feels personal. Musa lifts one hand gently to his ear and, without quite making contact, tilts his head to the side. At the same time, he closes his eyes in a way that suggests either profound meditation or mild exhaustion. This signal has been interpreted many ways over the years. Please reduce noise. Your donkey is breathing too loudly. The weighing spirits require silence. But the most common reading is, let the station rest a moment. It is weary. It's poetic, almost spiritual. And in the manual, not a single mention. Closest reference is in a footnote under Ambient Disruption Mitigation, where it simply states, officers may pause for recalibration of self or scale. So you oblige. You lean back slightly, let the reins go slack. The donkey lowers her head, eyes half closed, one ear still tracking mosquitoes. The station exhales. During this pause, Musa steps to the side of the slab and opens a rusted biscuit tin. It's been years since that tin held anything remotely edible. Now it contains chalk ends, string loops, and one faded photograph of what might be a festival float or just a particularly festive pile of yams. He retrieves a piece of blue chalk, rare, reserved for special notations. That's your procedural oddity of the night. Blue chalk is traditionally used for inconclusive results. Its use doesn't disqualify a way, but it does flag it for review if any formal audit occurs, which, in reality, has happened exactly once in the past 15 years. And that audit was mostly to recover a missing stamp pad. Musa uses the blue chalk to write a simple mark, 2 dots side by side. Then he circles them, not standard, not official, just his way. You don't ask. And then, just as he sets the tin back down, you hear it snap. Once. Then again. The double snap. Oh boy. This signal is infamous. Not for what it means, but for what it might mean. 2 fingers, snapped twice in rhythm. It's sharp, but not aggressive. A polite, rhythmic punctuation to the silent symphony of the way station. Some say it means, all clear. Others say it means, nice cart harness. A few even claim it's a Waymaster's version of applause. Tonight, you choose to interpret it as, we're done here. You glance at the donkey. She hasn't moved, which, in donkey language, is an enthusiastic agreement. But there's no official confirmation. No document signed, no stamp, just that snap, and a sudden stillness. You wonder, was that it? Then comes the unresolved moment. Musa, without looking at you, turns toward the tree line and gives a slow nod. To no one. Or to the wind. Or maybe to something long gone. It's not a signal. It's just a quiet acknowledgement that this session, this day, this moment has drawn to its odd little close. And for a second, you wonder, was this weighing ever really about the maze? Or was it about the motion? the pauses, the patience, the dance between cart and chalk and man and beast and slab. But you don't ask. You just sit. The donkey exhales. The sky is deep blue now. And the peace sign, sideways and slow, has melted back into dusk. The peace sign has faded. The chalk tins closed, and the evening seems to be tucking itself in around the station like a big wool blanket. But just when you think the whole ritual is over, when you're about to adjust your seat and start coaxing your donkey into reverse, Musa moves again. This time, it's deliberate. He stands fully, brushes dust from his lap, then lifts his hand in a gesture you've only seen once before. Flat palm over bucket. It's slow, intentional. His hand hovers, palm facing downward, right above the old, cracked plastic bucket near the slab's edge. It hasn't held water in months. Maybe years. These days it collects chalk dust, mango stems, and the occasional startled frog. But the gesture is unmistakable. Flat palm over bucket is one of the rarest signals. Some say it originated during the mango seasons, when carts would come overloaded with fruit and the station needed to verify whether the cargo was declared. It's not that the fruit was contraband, it's just that mango juice and mechanical levers do not mix well. Even today, the ghost of that rule lingers. And Musa, it seems, has decided it applies. You look at your cargo. The guavas, slightly soft, slightly fragrant. They've been the quiet passengers through all this. Balanced, behaved, but now they're the center of attention. Procedurally, this signal initiates a produce integrity check. It's never formal, no sniff test, no weight calculation. It's more interpretive. You know what to do. You hop down again, retrieve one guava from the upper basket, and hold it out, palms open. Musa doesn't reach for it. He just inspects, from a distance, eyes narrowed, not in suspicion, but in a kind of contemplative appraisal. Like a wine taster sizing up a cork. Then he nods once. That's enough. You return the guava to its spot. No bruises, no leaks. You're in the clear. Here's the procedural detail that applies, according to the 1982 Agricultural Load Compatibility Sheet. Fresh produce on open carts must be visibly intact and free from significant seepage or rot prior to final slab clearance. The regulation gives no definition of significant. It's all up to the weighmaster. And here's the quirk. The mango rule technically doesn't even apply to guavas. But Musa's always been a cautious man. He remembers the juice spill incident of '99. And no one wants that again. The chalk took a month to recover. With that final nod, you feel the momentum shift. The energy of closure, like a book slowly reaching its final page. And yet, there's one more gesture. Always, Musa turns his head, slowly, and gives a shaky wave toward the tree. You almost laugh. Because of all the way station signals, the shaky wave is the most charmingly vague. It's a hand wiggle, not side to side, not a firm, go there, motion. Just a slight shimmer. As if his fingers are unsure whether they want to wave or stretch. This signal typically means, park near the tamarind, but, and this is a big but, only if the tree isn't already occupied. Because, as you well know, sometimes there's a person asleep under that tree. A worker, a traveler, a wayward shepherd, and if that's the case, the signal becomes, go home. Or sometimes just, not here. You scan the shadowy area under the tamarind's generous canopy. It's hard to tell. There's a rolled mat. Could be empty. Could be someone curled up. The donkey senses the hesitation too. She lifts her head slightly, ears forward, then decides not to care. Musa doesn't clarify. You consider the options. You could risk it, park near the tree, drop the reins, and let the donkey rest. Or you could guide her down the lane toward the cooking fire you glimpsed earlier, a woman boiling yam near a quiet compound. You choose diplomacy. You click your tongue softly, guiding the cart just near the tree, but not under it. It's enough. And that's when Musa does something small, but final. He sits, not casually, not like earlier, but with the quiet purpose of a man who has finished. It's not a gesture. It's a closure. The slab is empty now, save for a few chalk lines, a faint groove left by your wheels, and a single guava that seems to have rolled just far enough to be forgotten. The scale creaks once, then stills. You pat your donkey neck. She leans into it, tired, resigned, victorious. Maybe. The last chalkboard entry is up to interpretation, just 2 marks and a line. But you suspect. If you read it sideways and squint, it might mean, all quiet, cart acceptable, return if needed. Or maybe it just means, no more juice today. The evening has claimed the station now. Crickets sing louder. The wind has stopped teasing the dust. And the bucket, still empty, still proud beneath that palm, is ready for tomorrow. And so are you. The moment feels complete, like the last flicker of light on a lantern wick. But of course, this is a way station. And nothing is truly done until you face the final mystery, when there is no signal at all. Musa doesn't wave. He doesn't nod. No chalk. No gestures. No amused flick of the wrist. He just vanishes. One moment, he's sitting in the rickety chair with its 3.5 legs and chipped blue paint, watching you with the stillness of someone who's perfected the art of waiting. The next, he's gone. Maybe behind the shed. Maybe heading home through the tall grass path that curls toward a row of huts. You can't hear his footsteps. Just the creak of the empty scale, still settling into the weightless quiet. You wait. Because this absence, is its own kind of cue. The veteran cart drivers know it well. It's called the vanishing point. Not because it's marked, or even planned, but because it always arrives the same way, suddenly, silently, and with just enough ambiguity to make you doubt everything that came before. Did the weighing happen? Was it valid? Should you stay? Leave? Reverse back onto the slab and wait for a comeback signal? There's no procedural manual entry for this moment. Closest thing is a vague paragraph at the very end of the 1979 Field Clerk's Addendum. Under a section titled, Disruption, Disappearance, or Divine Intervention, it advises the driver to use best judgment and mutual respect to infer conclusion. So you stay a minute longer. 2. The donkey, ever the philosopher, lowers her head to sniff the grass near the path. She seems more at peace than you do. Around you, the night fully arrives. The sky, which earlier held the last warmth of the sun, is now indigo velvet. A few stars poke through. Somewhere behind the hill, a flute plays, faint, reedy, unsure of its own melody. Still no Musa, still no signal. And so you do what every seasoned cart driver has done at least once. You improvise. You rise, gently untie the harness from the post. The ropes warm in your hands, carrying the sweat of the day and the faint scent of donkey oil. You reach beneath the cart and retrieve your cloth-wrapped bundle. It's soft now, the weight familiar. Inside, 3 flat stones. A bit of dried yam for the road. And the last mango pit you finally remembered to discard. You glance once more at the chalkboard. It's still there, 2 marks and a line. Unchanged. You stare at it until your eyes start to see letters where there are none. Maybe it's your name. Maybe it's a joke Musa played just for himself. One last look at the slab. Then you turn the cart around. The donkey responds without protest. Her hooves find the familiar groove, then shift outward to the sandy path. The cart creaks softly, adjusting to the evening's air. There's no formal departure signal. No record stamped. No receipt. Just you, rolling away into the night, hoping that silence counts as consent. Here's a little-known quirk at some rural stations, including this one. If the final way is accepted in silence, it's considered a floating confirmation. The chalk mark holds until morning, unless it rains, or the board is knocked over by a goat. Neither is guaranteed, so you move gently, low and slow. A good exit makes a good memory. As you guide the cart down the path, you remember something one of the older drivers told you on your first trip here. If the scale creaks after the chalk is down, you've done your job. And sure enough, somewhere behind you, just as the tamarind tree disappears from view, the slab creaks one last time. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet acknowledgement from an old concrete friend. Unresolved? Yes. But peaceful, too, because not every signal is a gesture. Not every confirmation is written. And not every moment needs to be explained. Sometimes, the silence is the final instruction. And tonight, it's yours. The road away from the station is soft and sandy, gently sloped, flanked by short grass and the occasional stubborn acacia tree. Your cart creaks rhythmically behind your donkey, whose steps are steady now, almost reflective, like she's memorized the journey so many times. She's no longer walking, just remembering. There's no need for speed. You've got a full load, or half. Technically, plus one chalk approval that may or may not be official. But that's okay. You've read the silence, seen the signs, and, most importantly, your donkey hasn't bucked. That's as good as a signed receipt around here. You glance back once at the station. It's barely visible now, just the outline of the slab in moonlight. A roof angled like a shrug, and the faintest shimmer of chalk dust clinging to the night air. You won't see Musa again tonight. Maybe not for a week. Maybe never. If he decides he's due for one of his unannounced sabbaticals that everyone pretends not to gossip about. But you carry his gestures with you. Literally. In your mind. Like flashcards from a language you didn't mean to learn but now speak fluently. And then, because this is still the realm of the manual, and your journey isn't finished, you pass a small wooden sign by the fork in the path. The sign is hand-painted, faded, and nailed slightly crooked to a post. Secondary station ahead, use if primary is unmanned. Ah, the fallback protocol. Every rural way system has one. Because waymasters vanish, scales break, slabs crack, and sometimes, someone needs to confirm a cartload when no one else is around to care. This second station is smaller, quieter, even. It's nestled under a neem tree and consists of nothing but a beam scale, a notebook tied to a post with string, and a tiny box labeled chalk. If any. You've only used it twice. Once during flood season, once when Musa had the flu and Auntie Halima insisted on a mandatory ginger tea lockdown. You turn left toward it now, just to be safe. The donkey seems to know the detour. She sighs, a soft, almost theatrical breath. The secondary station greets you with stillness. There's no one here, not even a goat, just the beam, the box, and that notebook, its pages fluttering slightly in the evening breeze, as if eager to record whatever you have to say. This is the self-declared way zone. It's rare, it's honored, and it runs on trust. You dismount, stretch, walk to the box. Inside, one nub of yellow chalk and what might have once been a pencil. The manual never fully outlines this protocol. Just a line in a dusty appendix. When left unsupervised, the traveler may log the load, mark the weight, and proceed under good faith. So that's what you do. You chalk down your symbol, 2 lines. A squiggle, a single dot, the shorthand for 2 maize sacks, 1 fruit basket, and minimal movement. Then, the unresolved question. Do you sign it? Some drivers do. A flourish, a name, a tiny donkey drawing. If they're feeling fancy, you pause, then add a single curved line. Not a signature, just a mark. A curve means, completed with care. You heard that once. You believe it now. You return to the cart. Your donkey shifts weight from one leg to the other. She's ready. But before you leave, you walk once more to the box and take one last look at the pencil. It has bite marks on it. Human, probably. Maybe Musa's, maybe someone else's. Whoever left them did their weighing in the old way, mouth clenched. Fingers dusty, back aching. You understand it now, more than ever. You slide the box closed. The chalk stays behind. Then up you go, back on the cart seat. The reins settle into your palms. The path ahead curves softly to the right, toward home, or trade, or maybe just the next station in this quiet, dusty network of unspoken rules. And behind you, nothing moves, nothing shouts, no one waves, only the trees, the chalk, and the half moon, keeping record in silence. The moon is your lantern now, hanging low and slow as your cart rolls gently over the sandy path. There's no rush, there never really is in Waymaster country. Just the long, dusty lull of travel where you measure distance not in kilometers, but in clicks of the axle and sighs from your donkey. Your reins are loose, your mind even looser. And then, like a flicker from memory, your hand reaches instinctively for the signal rope. It's not official, not part of the weighing process, but every cart has one. A bit of old nylon cord or jute twine looped near the driver's seat. Often mistaken for a handle. But you know its real use. It's for practice, gesture training, You started doing it on long drives between stations. When the road stretched on too quiet, and the donkey needed no steering, you'd tug once, twice, practicing signals in miniature. A flick for proceed, a clap for pause gesture in slow motion. Even that rare double palm pose that your uncle once called the sign of sacred indecision. You do it again now, just for rhythm, and as you do, your mind drifts back to something half forgotten. A story about a way station in the Yosh Plateau. Far to the east, where they used bells instead of hand signs. Each bell had its own pitch. A low clang meant, halt. A quick chime said, half-load only. And the elusive triple ring? That was saved for very special occasions, mainly weddings and potato festivals. Of course, bells went out of fashion. Too noisy, too breakable, and in goat country, practically irresistible to headbutts. Still, it makes you wonder, what other gestures have been lost? What signals flickered out before they were ever documented? Maybe once, long ago, someone used a foot tap to mean, I trust you. Or a wink, or a smile, or the simple act of stepping aside without a word. Weighing, after all, is more than chalk and numbers. It's a conversation without voice. A language written in posture and pause. Your donkey stumbles slightly, nothing dramatic. Just a brief misstep, and you reflexively reach out to steady the cart. No damage, just a reminder. This road, this job, it demands attentiveness. You sit upright again, recenter yourself, and that's when you spot it, a broken milestone. Lying half buried by the roadside. Carved decades ago, the numbers worn down to nothing. But the shape of it, that sharp, deliberate angle, still unmistakable. It once marked the halfway point between two long-forgotten stations. Some say it was cursed. Others say it was blessed. Most say it just made for a convenient napping spot. You stop the cart beside it. There's no reason to, but it feels appropriate. You dismount, walk over, brush off some dust, and there, on the stone's face, scratched lightly with a nail or penknife, is a tiny symbol, a sideways peace sign, not drawn carefully, just a quick mark, rough and human. Someone, at some point, left a signal here. No context, no audience, just a reminder that this language you've been learning, this strange, beautiful ballet of hands and chalk and silence, isn't new. You're just one more speaker in a long line of quiet storytellers. You return to the cart. Your donkey has already turned her head back toward the road, as if to say, are we going or not? You smile, click the reins gently, and off you go. As you ride, you start reviewing your own mental manual. Not the official one, your version. It's filled with odd rules and personal footnotes. 3-finger tap equals I'm unsure, but I trust you. Palm scratch equals I'm listening, but distracted. Eyes closed. Hand to heart equals the cart may be heavy, but my patience is heavier. And at the very back of your imaginary manual, there's a page that simply reads. Sometimes, no signal is the clearest one. It's your favorite line. You don't know who wrote it. Maybe you did, but it feels true tonight. Because here you are, rolling forward. Unhurried, unsignaled, unbothered, confident that the weight was measured. The mark was made, and the slab accepted you. The wind picks up slightly. The trees sway like they're nodding in agreement. And ahead? A soft curve in the path. No signs, no arrows, just the quiet assurance that wherever you're going, you already know the way. You follow the curve in the path, which dips gently before rising again toward a low ridge where the land opens up. Just wide enough to feel like a view. The trees thin out. The cart moves easier here. Less resistance, less friction, and, oddly, less thinking. The kind of terrain where your mind goes on autopilot, and the cart seems to pull itself forward out of memory alone. And then, you feel it, the itch of doubt. Did you tighten the second rope after the half-load adjustment? You glance over your shoulder. The sacks look fine, tidy, balanced, respectful of the donkey's center of gravity. But still, did you hear that little shift earlier? Was that the cart settling or a signal from your guavas? You pull lightly on the reins. The donkey stops with a grunt. Not annoyed, just curious. You hop down again, your knees creaking in harmony with the cart's axle. The air is cooler now. The scent of charcoal and crushed leaves rides in on the breeze. You check the knot. It's holding, but it could be better. And so you do what every driver eventually learns to do when no one's watching and no official is logging decisions. You retie. And in doing so, you trigger one of the most undocumented rules in Waymaster culture. The unspoken retie protocol. It goes like this. If you adjust your load after way station departure but before first trade or delivery, the adjustment must be emotionally justified, even if not recorded. That means, you must have a reason you believe in. A wobbly wheel, a suspicious rustle, a feeling in your chest. No one has to see it. But the retie only counts if your heart says so. You finish the knot, double wrap the jute for good measure, and pat the sack twice. That's your signal, not to anyone else, just to the cart, the donkey, and the world. I've done my due diligence. Back on the seat, the reins flick. The journey resumes. The road narrows slightly now, pressed in by tall grasses and whispering weeds. They brush the wheels like curious fingers. Your donkey doesn't flinch. She's done this too many times to let weeds boss her around. And here comes a crossroads. A real one. 3 paths. Left to the village proper, where the scales are digital but the smiles are not. Straight to the river, where traders nap in hammocks and no one counts sacks too closely. Right to the market with no signs, a place where all the vendors are old women and every price is whispered. You pause, and then, a thought flickers back to you. Musa's double snap. You still don't know what it meant. Proceed. Good job. Tell your donkey she's a star. Maybe, or maybe it was his way of pointing you here. To this choice. To this moment. You choose right. The path to the signless market is bumpier. Yes, but it's also familiar. There's something nice about trading where rules are flexible and laughter is part of the invoice. As you turn the cart, your donkey makes a small sound, not quite a bray, not quite a cough, more like an opinion. You accept it. The path wobbles, the wheels bounce, and for a moment you find yourself thinking about signals that never caught on. A few you've heard whispered among cart drivers. The belt tug, meant to signal, check under cart. But most waymasters thought it was just bad posture. The elbow dip, briefly used in Gombe to mean, you forgot something. But retired when someone dislocated their shoulder trying to be too expressive. The yawn tap, allegedly signals, we'll proceed after I nap. But it's impossible to distinguish from actual yawns. Your favorite? The coin drop. Supposedly used by a legendary waymaster named Bintu in 1985. Who would drop a single coin on the slab? Heads meant proceed, tails meant delay, edge meant, well, no one knows. But once it landed that way. And the entire station closed for 3 days just in case. You chuckle quietly. And then, as if on cue, a voice calls out, old, wry, familiar. Too late for proper trading. But not too late for a story. You spot her, Mama Hadiza. The oldest vendor in the market with no signs. Wrapped in layers of color. Sitting on a low stool that's probably older than the chalkboard back at the station. She waves. You wave back. No signals here, just gestures of kindness. And as you pull the cart near, you feel something new, but also ancient. A kind of full-circle stillness. The guavas are intact. The maize is measured. The donkey breathing even. The weight of the day, not just physical, but emotional, has been balanced. Chalked. And rolled into memory. You unload without instruction. Mama Hadiza doesn't ask for your docket. She just looks you over. Nods once. And says, Musa still doing that chalk flick thing? You nod. She smirks. Then gestures to a stool beside her. You sit. And for a moment, no cart moves. No goat bleats. No signal is made. Only the comfort of quiet company at the end of a long, dusty ritual. The stool creaks beneath you, not in protest, but in familiarity, like it's relieved to host someone who understands the language of worn wood and slow evenings. Mama Hadiza leans over, unwraps a cloth bundle, and offers you something small, a roasted groundnut cake, still warm from someone's distant fire. You accept it with the kind of nod that speaks volumes. No words needed. This is a different kind of station now. One without slabs or chalk. But still full of codes and signals. A look means, thank you. A head tilt says, have you eaten? And the way Mama Hadiza adjusts her wrapper? That's her version of, make yourself at home. But don't get too comfortable. You glance at your cart. The donkey has taken this as an opportunity to fully relax. She's lying down, not common. But not rare. She knows this place. She trusts it. And that's when you see it, carved faintly into the edge of Mama Hadiza's stool. A symbol. Flat palm. Fingers wiggling. You blink. Double check. Yes. It's unmistakable. The same rare gesture that Elder Bakure used. The Thursday-only hand wiggle for half-load adjustment. Etched here. Faint but permanent. By someone who knew exactly what it meant. You trace it with your thumb. Just once. Mama Hadiza sees you do it. Smiles. But doesn't explain. She never does. That's her way. But you've just uncovered something curious. A little-known fact among traders. This market once doubled as a weigh verification outpost. Before the station got its slab. Before Musa had a shed and a board. Before chalk became an industry of its own. Back then, the vendors here weighed cargo by feel. By bounce. By how much the cart's front dipped under tension. They used signals too, not official ones, just nods, hums, a quick lean of the shoulder that meant, trust me. That's about 35 kilograms of yam. And it worked. Not always precisely, but always with care. Mama Hadiza shifts slightly and starts peeling a boiled egg with fingers that still remember the motion even when the grip doesn't. Young ones don't ask about the old codes anymore. She murmurs, half to herself. All digital now. Beep beep. No poetry. You nod. Not because you agree, though you might, but because that's the correct reply to a sentence like that. Then she chuckles. Course. Musa still uses that button trick. You raise your eyebrows. You saw it? You nod again. She leans in, lowers her voice. His brother gave him that button. Before he went to Abuja. Said, you'll need this to remember what's real. So now, every time Musa's unsure, he checks it. Makes no sense to anyone but him. The unresolved signal. Now resolved. At least in spirit. A personal artifact turned into ritual. A one-man code embedded in routine. It makes you wonder how many other gestures were born this way. How many hand signals weren't invented by policy or council, but by need, by loss, by love. You look down at your own hands. Think of all the motions they've memorized, the flicks, the holds, the hovers, each one a sentence in this quiet dialect of dust and rope. And here's the quirk. Mama Hadiza was once a weighmaster herself. Not officially, not trained, but respected. Her judgments carried more weight than any beam or slab. Back then, when the rains came early and the roads turned to soup, she was the one who decided whether a cart could cross, whether a load was fair, whether a donkey had earned a rest. She never used chalk. She used coins, flipped them, listened for the ring. Heads, proceed. Tails, rest. Edge, cancel the market. And once, it did land on the edge. A small coin, on a flat rock, in full view of 10 traders and 2 goats. The whole market shut down for the day. No one questioned it, because when a signal defies gravity, you don't argue. You sip from your canteen. Offer Mama Hadiza the last of your ground nuts. She accepts too, places them carefully into her pouch. The donkey stirs, raises her head, blinks once. She's ready, but you're not rushing. Not yet. Because you know now, this place, this stool, this moment, is just as sacred as any way station. Maybe more so. Here, gestures are older, softer, passed down by habit, not handbook. Before you go, Mama Hadiza lifts a single finger. Not flicked, not hovered, just raised. The meaning? Hard to say. Could be, safe travels. Could be, you'll be back. Or maybe, just maybe, it's a signal from one storyteller to another. Keep the ritual alive. You nod once, then twice, then stand. And the cart creaks as if it, too, is saying goodbye. You guide the cart away from the market with no signs. Past the leaning basket of roasted yams. The blanket laid out with tamarind paste. And the silent stall with exactly one woven fan for sale. No one calls after you. No one tries to bargain. It's that kind of market, a place where presence is currency. And silence often means thank you. Your donkey steps carefully, as if she, too, is trying not to wake the evening. The wheels roll smoother now. The weight of the cart balanced. not just physically, but emotionally. It's funny how you can carry so much less than what you arrived with and still feel full. There's a bend in the path just beyond the last tamarind tree. And as you round it, you spot it, another way station. Not your station, not Moose's. This one is abandoned. Concrete cracking at the corners. A chalkboard with vines curling up its frame. The slab still visible but barely. Its surface worn to a dull gray whisper. The shed's roof has half collapsed. And inside you can see the remains of an overturned stool and a rusted lever arm, once part of the scale. Now part of the wildlife. But here's the curious part. Someone has recently swept the slab. No footprints, no cart grooves, but the dust has been cleared in neat, practiced strokes. A ritual, perhaps. You slow the cart, then stop. Something about the place feels reverent. Not haunted, just paused. You step down quietly, careful not to let the harness clink too loudly. The donkey stays still, ears forward, curious. You approach the slab, and there it is, etched faintly into the concrete. Beneath the layer of time and wear. A double snap symbol, not written in chalk, carved. 2 stylized finger shapes, curling mid-click. Someone marked it here long ago. Deep enough to outlast the dust and the weather and even the memory of what it meant. This was once someone's station. Someone's domain of procedure and palm signals. Someone's home for gestures. And now, it's a whisper of that language. Preserved in stone. You kneel. Press your palm flat against the carving. It's cooler than the air. Smoother than you expected. No one's around to see you do it. But you still perform the act with intention. You lift your hand, and snap twice. Quietly. Not for the donkey. Not for the market. Not even for Musa. For the signal itself. Because you're beginning to understand that these gestures, these odd little hand dances of flicks and waves and wobbles, aren't just part of a system. They're part of a memory map. Markers of presence. Proof that someone was here. With cargo to measure and patience to offer. You walk the perimeter of the slab. There's an old tin bucket tipped on its side near the weeds. Inside, a single stone. Round, polished, deliberate. Someone once used it as a counterweight. Probably, or maybe just carried it as a worry stone. Like Musa's button, you leave it there. Some objects don't want to be picked up again. As you prepare to leave, you glance once more at the faded chalkboard. Despite the weathering, a few marks remain. A triangle, a squiggle, a line that loops and doesn't quite close. The code is too faded to decipher fully. But one thing is clear, the language was here. Is still here. And even if the station is gone from maps, forgotten in manuals, omitted from the updated list of certified waypoints, it remains alive in gesture. You step back onto the cart. The donkey waits for your cue. You raise your hand, and without thinking, without planning, you give a sideways peace sign. To the empty station, to whoever once worked there, to the ghosts of chalk and balance. Then you flick the reins. The cart moves forward. The wheels catch a groove that feels familiar. As if every cart that ever came this way left behind not just tracks, but rhythm. And you fall into it. Back to the road. Back to the quiet. Back to a world where weight isn't always measured in kilograms. Sometimes, it's measured in memories. The road home is longer than you remember. Or maybe it's just wider. Not in size, but in feeling. You sit a little straighter now, not from tension, but from understanding, like someone who's learned a language in a dream and now walks through the world hearing echoes of its grammar everywhere. Your donkey hums in her own way. Hooves beat a steady, thoughtful rhythm against the packed earth. No rush. She knows you're not late. You're never late, not when time moves in chalk marks and hand flicks. A breeze slips past you, carrying scents of charcoal, ripening baobab fruit, and something faintly metallic, maybe from the old tins that once held beans and now hold memories. You reach into the side pouch of the cart and pull out your own ledger. It's not official, just a folded notebook you've kept for years. No title, no logos, just page after page of hand signals drawn by your own pen. Each one annotated with the kind of notes that would drive a regulation officer up a very dusty wall. Like, double snap equals Musa's version of good job. Or maybe just itchy fingers. Wiggling palm, Thursday only, maybe tied to mango supply chain nostalgia. Hovering finger, very strong, I'm watching you, energy. Proceed with caution. Each page tells a story. Not of loads, not of weights, but of gestures, of people who chose to say things with motion instead of words. Who let the position of a thumb settle disputes? Who trusted that a hand placed flat over a bucket could convey more nuance than any bureaucratic form ever could? You flip to the back. There's a blank page waiting. You take out the tiny stub of pencil you carry, chewed at one end. A splinter sticking out like a tail, and write. The vanishing point is not the end. It's the last signal we carry inside. You pause, underline it once, then look up. The lights of your compound come into view, dim lanterns. One solar bulb flickering gently in the breeze. You see the water pot outside. The curve of a resting bench. The shape of someone's slippers kicked off in the sand. You're home. You guide the cart to the side and hop down. The donkey doesn't need prompting. She heads straight for the trough. As if the day never happened. Like she didn't carry half a load and all of your thoughts across kilometers of memory and silence. You unload slowly. No audience, no musa, no chalkboard, but you find yourself performing the routine anyway. One bag, one basket, a small pause, a nod. You even find your hand rising in a gentle flick toward the slab of stone you use as your personal way zone, an old foundation left from your grandfather's time. He once told you it had held a grain silo, or maybe a chicken coop. No one remembers now, but it holds your history. You set the final bag down. Then look to the sky. There's a star there, bright, steady, right above where the road disappears into night. And you remember something Mama Hadiza said, not in words, but in that sideways peace sign she carved into her stool. That some signals aren't for other people. They're for us. To remind us that we were here. That we waited, watched, interpreted, and somehow, we understood. You sit on the bench. Let the night cool your arms. The cart's still loaded. Technically, there's always one last weight we carry. But that's okay. Because now you know. You are part of the chain. One link in the lineage of quiet signals and creaky carts. One more storyteller in the gentle manual of movement and meaning. And with that thought, your eyes soften, your breath deepens, and the world around you grows quiet, slow, and still. So now, as the cart rests, the donkey sleeps, and the last firelight fades from the station of your memory, let your breath slow. Let the dust settle. Let the quiet wrap around you like the softest blanket, the kind you only find in places with no signs. No clocks, and no rush. You've traveled a long way tonight. Not just in kilometers, but through gestures, through small acts of trust, of care, of silent understanding. You've read chalkboard messages only meant for those who pause long enough to see them. You've waded through wrist taps, half claps, and vanishing waymasters, and you made it, not with speed, but with rhythm. Now, there's nothing left to weigh. No signal left to wait for. Only the gentle, remembered motion of the journey itself. Let that rhythm carry you now. Down into sleep, into rest, into the calm knowing that sometimes, the world moves not by orders or alarms, but by quiet signs passed from hand to hand, soul to soul, dusk to dusk. And tonight, you were part of that. So close your eyes, wherever you are. Let your heartbeat slow to the pace of a donkey cart under moonlight. Let your thoughts drift with the wind that carries chalk dust across the slab. Let your dreams begin at the vanishing point. And from here, go softly, quietly, peacefully. You're already home. Hey guys, tonight we're going back in time, specifically to someone's tiled kitchen in the Thai lowlands. Around 1983, the walls are painted a dull cream. There's a single fluorescent bulb buzzing faintly above you. And on the counter, like a humble shrine to convenience, sits a beige plastic rice cooker. Its body is slightly yellowed with time. The lid has a few scuffs. There are red and green stickers flaking off at the edges. And although no one's touched it for hours, you'd swear it's humming, just the faintest buzz. Like it remembers something. This story might spark your curiosity, or just put you gently to sleep. Either way, I'm glad you're here. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop your location and the local time in the comments. I love seeing where everyone's tuning in from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You reach out, resting your hand lightly on the dome of the rice cooker. It's warm, not hot, just comfortably room temperature plus a few degrees. The switch on the front, a classic toggle in bright red plastic, is set squarely to warm. The diagram from the manual says that's the correct default state once the cook cycle ends. Or at least that's what it says in English. In Thai, the same diagram seems to suggest that warm might also mean standby for destiny. The labels around the switch have faded from years of steam. One of them looks like a safety warning, but it's been partially dissolved by starch mist. What remains is the phrase, "Do not rotate after mood reset." You try not to wonder what mood it's referring to, yours. The rayas, or the cookers, the troubleshooting diagrams, printed in crisp black lines on soft pulp paper, introduce you to the machine's soul in oddly poetic terms. The first flowchart reads, "Unit plugged in right pointing arrow indicator glows right pointing arrow lid hisses right pointing arrow wait." And then a note, not in the chart but handwritten at the bottom. "If indicator does not glow, check with your heart first." You flip the page and find a full frontal diagram of the unit. Annotated with both Thai characters and loose English translations. There's an arrow pointing to the front switch labeled, "First switch, original purpose unknown." According to the note, early prototypes included this switch as a backup trigger for emotional restarts. It was later removed from most models but still appears in diagrams, like a ghost of manufacturer intentions past. Steam escapes gently from the tiny vent hole near the top. If you look closely, you can just make out a small stain where the lid has warped slightly over time. In the manual, the lid is drawn as a perfect oval. Yours leans a bit to the left. Charming. Next, you study the starch prevention dome cap, which is just a fancy name for the piece that sits under the lid to keep foam from overflowing. Diagram 1b helpfully notes, "Dome may clink or wobble during storms." This is not an error. You press the lid lightly. It makes a soft clicking sound, twice. That's new, or maybe it always did that, and you never listened closely before. And here comes your first procedural instruction, labeled in all caps. "Do not attempt to remove lid mid-cycle. Do not attempt to remove lid post-cycle. Do not attempt to remove lid for fun." You gently back away. The manual continues with a labeled illustration of the power cord. It's a detachable cord on some models, though others soldered it in permanently for reasons lost to history. There's a small note, "If cord rattles in socket, consider destiny fulfilled." You look at your cord. It rattles. A little. You nod solemnly. The base of the unit features a decorative trim that looks metallic but is in fact plastic, painted in a shade the manual calls champagne mist. It catches the light just enough to remind you of motel keys and cassette tape spools. Faded, but somehow eternal. At the very bottom of the page, in 6-point font, there's a line you almost miss. "Unit may hum softly when lonely." This is expected. You pause and listen. Yes, there it is. A low, comforting hum, somewhere between the sound of a distant fan and the gentle whine of a sleepy bee. You feel oddly reassured. You glance once more at the diagram. The arrows point calmly in all directions. You realize now that it doesn't lead to a conclusion, just loops. Warm to cook, cook to warm, then off, unless the switch doesn't click. In which case the loop continues indefinitely. There is no diagram for that scenario. Only a footnote. Looping state may occur, except gently. So you do. You sit quietly beside the rice cooker. Steam curls upward like a ribbon, twisting into the light and disappearing. It hasn't made rice today. Doesn't matter. It might tomorrow, or it might just keep humming. Either way, you're here, and so is it. The warm mode is still glowing. That little orange bulb, barely brighter than a nightlight, has now taken on a kind of personality. It doesn't blink. It doesn't flicker. It just glows, resolute, steady, like a rice-focused lighthouse. According to diagram 2A in the manual, this indicator light is governed by something called the persistence relay unit, which sounds much more complicated than it is. The actual component, you later learn, is a bimetallic strip and a spring. But in the diagram, it's lovingly shaded and labeled with arrows looping around it like it's the heart of the entire operation. There's also a warning box next to it. It reads, "In case of continuous glow for more than 47 minutes post-cook, consider weather patterns or lunar cycle." You reread it just to be sure. Yes, lunar cycle. Apparently, the 1983 model, affectionately referred to by owners as the Sticky Star 9000, is prone to heat memory, especially during the waxing moon. The manual doesn't explain what heat memory is. It just assumes you've lived enough to know. You lean in, feeling the faint warmth from the lid. It's not alarming, not dangerous, just the kind of warmth that makes you second guess if it's actually on. Your fingers brush the side. Still warm, still humming, the light's still on. You haven't touched the switch. You wonder, how long has it been like this? In a side note at the bottom of diagram 2A, there's a curious sentence. Some models may simulate warmth without heating. This is not deceit. This is legacy function. So now you're unsure. Is this heat real, or simulated nostalgia? You flip a few pages forward. There's a small chart titled, "Troubles Indicated by Warm Mode Behaviors." It lists 7 possible states. 1. Warm light steady right pointing arrow normal operation. 2. Warm light flickers right pointing arrow dust in socket. 3. Warm light off. Heat present right pointing arrow phantom warmth. 4. Warm light on. No heat right pointing arrow rebellious mood. 5. Warm light changes color right pointing arrow seek priest. 6. Warm light hums right pointing arrow accept fate. 7. Warm light grows brighter right pointing arrow consult dealer. Yours is steady, so technically, normal. Still, you can't help but feel like the machine is making a quiet point. Maybe about time, or patience, or how everything feels slightly stickier during rainy season. You thumb through the old diagrams again. This time focusing on the one with multiple rice grains drawn along the base, each one with a different texture rating. According to this page, the warm mode was never meant to last more than 15 minutes. After that, it becomes what the manual calls grain drift zone. In this state, rice begins to develop what's referred to as soft crusting. Not quite congee, not quite toast, a limbo zone. Some owners, especially in the humid central plains, came to prefer this texture. In fact, local legend has it that one woman in Ayutthaya left her cooker in warm mode for 3 straight days during a flood, and emerged with something that tasted like heaven and smelled like damp sandals. She tried to recreate it later, but it never worked again. This is noted in the margin as user error exception, flood-induced rice spirit intervention. Rare. You look back at your own machine. Still warm, still glowing. The manual suggests you test for stubborn heat retention by placing a coin on the lid and watching for slow movement. You do. The coin doesn't move. You can't decide if that's a good sign. It's at this point you realize the switch itself has a slightly unusual texture. Rubbery. Not rubber exactly. More like cured mango skin. You wonder if it's always felt like that, or if age has softened it into something new. You read again. The warm switch may remain in a fixed state due to emotional wear. Do not force it. Speak gently and wait. So you speak. Just a quiet hello. The cooker doesn't answer, which is probably for the best. Another diagram shows the inside of the unit, a side view revealing the heating plate, the bowl, and the odd labeled nub known as the non-automatic rice encourager. No one really knows what it does. Some speculate it helps reduce condensation. Others say it just takes up space to make the parts fit snugly. Either way, it's drawn with a little smile. You close the manual slowly and sit beside the cooker. There's a breeze coming in from the window now. The lid glints in the last of the ambient kitchen light. Somewhere far away, a dog barks once, then gives up, and the warm light glows on. The diagrams are getting more specific now. You flip to a page titled in all caps, "Handle latch tension spring, possible adjustments, theoretical only." Right away, you know this won't be straightforward. The illustration shows a cross-section of the lid mechanism, but it's hand-drawn in a way that feels more interpretive than technical. The spring is shaded with such enthusiasm that it looks like a coiled dragon sleeping between two clouds. There's even a small arrow labeled, maybe here, pointing toward its middle. You place your hand on the rice cooker handle. It wobbles, not dangerously, not broken, just enough to make a soft clack if nudged. According to the manual, this is normal under high emotional frequency. That line is followed by the suggestion to avoid tinkering unless the lid jumps unexpectedly. Yours hasn't jumped yet, but you're curious, so you lift the lid slowly. It gives a little resistance, then opens with that sighing exhale sound only old kitchen gadgets seem to know how to make. The inner bowl is still inside, ringed with a faint shadow where past rice batches have left behind tiny ghosts. You carefully remove it, and underneath, the heating plate gleams, dull silver with a few speckles of brown. Like coffee on a mirror. The manual advises, if the heating plate sings, audibly or metaphorically, consult diagram 3A. It's quiet today. You check the latch again. The spring is hidden behind a small plastic cover. Secured with a screw that appears to have been invented in another galaxy, it's flat, but ridged, with a small flower symbol in the center. None of your tools fit it. The diagram is sympathetic. It shows a person holding a screwdriver in one hand, while the other hand simply gestures at the rice cooker. Like a shrug. The caption reads, "If access proves difficult, attempt to inspire the component." So you try. You speak gently, offer encouragement. Nothing happens, but you do feel calmer. You shift focus to the tension rating chart below the drawing. It's printed in 5 languages, but only the Thai and French translations are fully legible. The English version lists 3 categories. Firm like Auntie's elbow, soft but unyielding, ideal, yet impossible. The spring tension on your model feels somewhere between the elbow and the impossible. You nod in approval. That feels right. You run your thumb along the inside edge of the lid. There's a faint indentation, a groove that doesn't appear in any of the diagrams. Maybe a manufacturer's whim, or maybe the rice cooker is aging in its own unique direction. The manual includes a charming disclaimer. Minor deviations from diagram expected after 7.2 years. Let go of exactness. You smile. Next to the spring diagram, a section titled, Lid Rattle versus Lid Chatter, attempts to distinguish between 2 forms of mechanical noise. Rattle is caused by loose parts. Chatter, it says, is the machine thinking aloud. You're encouraged not to interrupt. Your rice cooker doesn't do either tonight. But you've heard chatter before. That light click tick tick rhythm it makes while cooling down. Like a teapot whispering secrets to itself. You always thought that sound was just thermal contraction. But the manual suggests it might be the cooker's version of journaling. You gently close the lid, letting it fall back into place with a soft thunk. The handle nestles down, and for a moment, the machine seems at peace. The troubleshooting diagram for the latch includes one final note in a call-out bubble drawn like a comic strip. Sometimes, the handle does not align. This is not failure. This is preference. You respect that. You give the cooker one last nudge with your knuckle. The latch clicks again, twice, a soft, musical sound, almost like a metronome at rest. And then you notice something new, a tiny smudge of black ink near the latch. A fingerprint? A factory worker's final touch? Or maybe just a splash from years of kitchen stories? Whatever it is, the manual doesn't mention it. But now it's yours. The diagrams have led you here, not to clarity, but to familiarity. You haven't adjusted anything. You haven't fixed a spring. But somehow, everything feels more aligned. You lean back in your chair. The cooker sits quietly, lid secure, latch slightly loose, humming with the confidence of something that never needed to be perfect to be loved. The red dot is staring back at you now. It sits just under the lid's edge, small but bright, like a drop of enamel paint accidentally brushed on during manufacturing. But in the diagram 4B, it's labeled quite deliberately. Red dot, do not touch. There's no asterisk, no explanation, just that flat command. And naturally, now you want nothing more than to touch it. But you don't. Not yet. You lean in to inspect. It's smooth, glossy, centered exactly where the lid's inner lip curves toward the steam channel. The surrounding plastic is unmarked. though on some older models, owners have reported faint imprints forming around the red dot, what one manual footnote describes as heat halos. According to one half-page legend near the back of the booklet, the red dot was introduced for quality assurance testing in 1982 and was supposed to be removed before sale. Apparently, many weren't, so now it's both part of the rice cooker and a lingering manufacturing shrug. Some users have reported that touching the red dot during a cook cycle will void the implied warranty. Not the actual one, the implied one, a sort of spiritual agreement between you and the machine that you'll each stay in your lane. You place your fingertip just near the dot, hovering. The manual's diagram shows a ghosted outline of a hand, finger extended, hovering exactly 1.5 centimeters above the surface. A dotted line marks the boundary. The caption reads, "Beyond this, understanding becomes folklore." You pull your hand back. Instead, you open the page labeled Alternate Functions Not Recommended and find a list of things people have reportedly tried, none of which are sanctioned. It includes placing coins on the lid to test heat zones, using the inner pot to wash socks, touching the red dot 3 times during the full moon, whispering questions into the steam vent. Only the last one is marked as harmless, but ineffective. You flip to the bottom of the diagram. There's a small note in faded purple ink. If the red dot begins to fade, consider writing down your dreams. It's unclear whether this is literal advice or a whimsical translation error. You stare at the dot again, unmoving, unblinking. You start to wonder if it has always been there, or if the cooker somehow grows it over time like a birthmark. There's no way to know. Another section, Diagram 4C, attempts to contextualize the red dot with a thermal map. A colored gradient surrounds it, with ranges labeled in approximate Celsius readings. But the highest temperature zone is simply marked sensitive region, no known recipes. You smile at that. Then you notice something. When the lid is open at a certain angle, just slightly past vertical, the red dot catches the light from the kitchen window and reflects it back in a dull shimmer. Not bright, but enough to suggest movement. This may be coincidence, or it may be intentional. Some earlier engineers supposedly believed the red dot served as a visual cue, aligning perfectly with the shadow of the lid's hinge to indicate peak steam dispersion. But the manual never confirms this. In fact, on the very last page, in a section titled, Things We Are Still Figuring Out, the red dot is listed at number 3, just below. 1. Why the inner pot sometimes turns blue in winter. 2. What causes the faint popping sound when no rice is present. So you decide not to touch it. Not because you're afraid, but because not knowing feels better than finding out. You lower the lid carefully. The red dot disappears back into the rim. Like an eyelid closing, you half expect the humming to change pitch. But it doesn't. The warmth remains steady, the toggle stays still, and the dot keeps its mystery. Sometimes, the best part of a diagram isn't the instruction, but the absence of one. The rice cooker's cord lies slack against the counter, coiled like a sleeping snake. It's not detachable, not on this model. The diagram insists otherwise. Diagram 5A clearly shows a gentle release tab that no longer exists in reality. Your model has what the manual now refers to in an embarrassed footnote as a permanent enthusiasm cord. It's pale gray, slightly rigid from age, and it always wants to curl into a loop no matter how you place it. The manual suggests winding clockwise under low light for reduced memory. You tried once. It snapped back anyway. You learned to let it lie the way it wants. The plug is bulky, with those short, stubby prongs that don't quite align with modern sockets. Yours fits only in the kitchen's oldest outlet, the one next to the water kettle that sparks if you breathe wrong. According to the troubleshooting flowchart for Section 5, one of the most common complaints is, plug seems too confident. The suggested fix is, rotate gently, then complement it. So you do. You whisper, "You're doing great." The plug doesn't respond, but it holds. That's all that matters. Further down in the diagram, there's an illustration of the cord when coiled correctly. The caption reads, "Ideal curl resembles the Lao symbol for patience. Imperfect curls are still worthy." You look at your cord again. It's trying its best. One loop is slightly squared off. Another one has a nervous little bend. You approve. The wire casing has a faint ridge, maybe a heat scar from long hours left plugged in. In the manual's glossary, this is called a rest line, defined as the quiet history of long usefulness. There's even a little chart to identify them. Soft crease near plug right pointing arrow regular service. Twist near midpoint right pointing arrow owner indecision. Sharp bend at socket base right pointing arrow unplanned relocation. Yours has all three. A full life. Coiled in PVC. The next page features a series of line drawings titled Correct Storage During Lunar Off Cycles. Apparently, in the original instructions, users were advised to unplug the unit during eclipses and tuck the cord under a bowl of cooked rice to restore polarity. This practice is no longer enforced or remembered, but the diagram remains. Just under that is a single sentence. Some cords may hum when the house is otherwise silent. You pause, you listen, and you're almost sure it's true. Near the bottom of the section, the chord diagram shifts tone. It gets reflective. A paragraph boxed in soft borders states, "The chord has no memory of what it cooked. It is not sentimental, but it is loyal. It will do the job again and again, without comment or complaint, so long as you let it rest between efforts." You look again at the loop. The old plastic sheath, the way it curves and waits. And then, at the very end of section 5, a final advisory. If your cord has been stretched too far, too long, for too many meals, wrap it slowly. Say thank you, then give it a drawer of its own. You smile, because you already have. Bottom left, under the cling wrap and faded takeout menus. Its own drawer, its own place. Because even the part that connects the cooker to the wall, even that part deserves a little kindness. You've reached chart 6B. It's tucked between a page about lid gasket fatigue and a confusing illustration of steam vent etiquette. But this chart is the real reason many people come back to the manual. At the top, it says, Rice Adhesion Protocol, Chart 6B, Factors Affecting Stickiness by Region and Day of Week. And below that, the most lovingly over-engineered table you've ever seen. There are columns labeled, Ambient Humidity, Altitude relative to nearest hill shrine. Type of rice, common. Proud, bashful. Day of week. Stickiness index, left, right, and central pot zones. Rows and rows of sleepy rice science. You skim to Tuesday, your current day. You live somewhere near sea level, with medium humidity and a common brand of jasmine rice. That puts your predicted adhesion at moderate cling, right bias, slight crust edge. And you know what? That checks out. You glance into the inner pot. A faint halo of stuck rice curves around the 4 o'clock position. The manual wins again. A smaller note near the bottom of the chart says, in coastal provinces, expect increased adhesion during Tuesdays and major holidays. This is not a defect. It is a mood. You appreciate that it doesn't try to explain the phenomenon away. It just lets it be. You run your finger across the diagram. The right zone is always stickier. Apparently, because of where the heating coil makes full contact, except during April. When the cooker mysteriously favors the left. No one knows why. There's even a tiny cartoon of a rice cooker shrugging. A footnote elaborates. Diagram based on aggregated data from 37 households. 1981 to 1983. Outliers included. Because every pot tells its own story. You remember a time when you tried to scrub away every bit of stuck rice. Every golden edge. Now, you know better. Now, you let the rice tell you when it's ready to go. There's even a side panel titled, What the Adhesion Teaches Us. Which reads, if it clings, let it. If it lifts, thank it. If it cracks, it probably wanted to be toasted anyway. You laugh gently. You don't remember a single modern manual ever sounding this. Consider it. Toward the bottom of the page, the diagrams shift into rice separation response techniques. It includes an illustrated spoon, drawn at 3 angles, asterisk asterisk, coax, position. Lift respectfully, position. Too aggressive, apologize, position. Each one has a different impact on remaining adhesion. Apparently, the optimal angle is 27 degrees. Held for 3 seconds before lift. No one ever measures this. But maybe they feel it. There's a final suggestion that if rice clings more than usual, You should rotate the bowl clockwise before lifting. Not because it will help, but because, as the manual says, the bowl enjoys the dance. You lean back, let the spoon sit still in your hand. Look at the little half-moon of golden rice forming a subtle map along the bottom of the pot. And suddenly you think, maybe every batch has its own geography. There's the crispy archipelago near the bottom, the soft delta by the steam channel, that stubborn peninsula that always sticks. No matter what you do. The manual says not to fight the crust. Let it be, let it form, let it teach, and if you must clean it, soak the pot gently. No soap for the first hour. Just water and memory. Some say the best batches of rice are never served. They're discovered, quietly, while cleaning. You close chart 6b. You've learned nothing new, and everything you needed. Now, we enter the land of the jellyfish diagram. It's on page 17 of the manual, and it doesn't announce itself with any bold heading, just a quietly underlined phrase. Nonlinear toast cycle configuration, optional mode. You stare at the chart. At first glance, it looks like a doodle, a loose spiral radiating from the center of the page, with a few random arrows and a number of time markings that don't line up with any 24-hour clock. At the base of the page, someone's added a dotted ring that resembles tentacles. But this, the manual insists, is the official diagram for what some models call the toasted rice mode. This feature isn't on the main switch. It's not listed on the control knob. You only get it by holding the cook lever halfway down for 5 seconds. Releasing it, then tapping the side of the unit twice with your knuckle. No one ever does it by accident. But once you do, you know, the inner pot heats slowly, irregularly, like someone breathing through sleep. The rice along the bottom begins to brown, then crisp, then whisper, just a little. The manual refers to this as non-uniform dry edge thermal response, desired. It says the results may smell faintly nostalgic, like temple smoke or grandma's tired laughter. Your cooker has done it twice, both times on cool evenings, when you weren't paying full attention, and the lever gave you that soft, strange half-click, like it couldn't decide whether to commit. The diagram, strange as it is, attempts to map the experience. It charts something called crust blue mark and lift hesitation zones. These are apparently times when the toasted rice will temporarily resist separation. The key is to wait. If you try too soon, you get flake. If you wait just enough, it releases whole, a golden fan of perfection. There's a note tucked in the margin. Do not chase the toast. Let the toast come to you. You remember reading that line once and thinking it sounded like fortune cookie wisdom. Then you pulled a perfectly intact sheet of crispy rice from the bottom of the pot. Golden and fragrant, and it all made sense. The jellyfish shape, it turns out, reflects heat flow, or mood. One engineer, anonymous, of course, once said the diagram was drawn from a dream. The dream involved a rice field, moonlight, and an orchestra playing spoons. The editor didn't question it. There's a quote in the appendix. If your cooker produces a toast cycle without being prompted, accept the gift. You were ready. You think about those moments now, when the kitchen filled with that particular warmth, when even the spoon seemed reluctant to disturb it, when you held your breath just to keep the crust intact. This section of the manual is less about fixing, more about noticing. There's no error code here, no fix-it steps, just diagrams that look like weather maps and phrases like ideal browning humidity, 46–53%, and rotation of the earth may affect crispiness, which sounds like a joke. But you're not sure. A sidebar reads, some units emit a soft tone during optimal toast. It's not a beep, more like a low note from a content animal. You listen. Not today, no tone, but you can imagine it. And then there's the final figure, a page-sized chart showing dozens of toasted rice formations. From pancake spiral, to golden tectonics, to the coveted bowl release flake. Each has a small drawing, a poetic name, and a brief description of emotional effect. Your favorite is the one called Sunken Temple Roof, which promises a mild feeling of triumph and one warm toe. You remember achieving that once. You didn't take a photo. You just sat and admired it. Because like the manual says at the very end of this section, Toasted rice is not a recipe. It's a confession. And the pot will only share it if you're very quiet. You've now flipped to one of the most worn-out pages in the manual, the steam vent maintenance guide. It's smudged at the corners, dotted with faint grease fingerprints, and folded once vertically like someone tried to pocket it and changed their mind halfway. At the top, it reads simply, Steam cap and emotional pressure release, diagram 8A. You gently run your thumb along the vent on your rice cooker. It's small, barely more than a slot disguised as a shadow. And if you're not paying attention, you might mistake it for a decorative seam. But this tiny portal is responsible for balancing temperature, releasing pressure, and, if you believe the manual, allowing inner spirit to rise with the grain. Your steam vent is a bit clogged. You knew that, but diagram 8A doesn't give you an exact fix. It gives you a series of conditional statements. If there is steam, and the cap rattles, it's acceptable. If modest. If the cap whistles, seek wisdom, something's out of alignment. If the cap does neither, check for blockage, or a lack of courage within. You smile. The drawing shows an exploded view of the steam cap, 3 parts that do not come apart in reality. The rubber gasket is labeled, perishable soul piece, and the lid beneath it is annotated with a reminder. Never wash this part too sternly. You unscrew the cap, slowly, with your pinky supporting the base, and sure enough, a tiny fleck of old rice crust clings to the inner edge. The diagram recommends removing such residue with a cloth made of memory. You use a napkin from a noodle shop you visited 6 months ago. Close enough. You wipe it gently, the cap size back into place. Now, the real moment, the test. You fill the pot with just a splash of water and hit cook for 1 heartbeat, just long enough to warm it. Not enough to boil. Then you listen. The manual says, if the vent breathes evenly, you are forgiven. If it sputters, you are remembered. Your steam vent breathes evenly. You exhale. 2. You flip the page and discover a full spread illustration of steam shapes and their meanings. It's part science, part poetry, part folklore. A single upward column equals focused intent. Gentle curling spirals equals thoughtful delay. Forked wisps equals undecided purpose. No steam equals secret held. You recall seeing forked wisps once. The rice had been left soaking too long. You didn't eat it that night. Beneath that, the diagram introduces the phrase, manual condensation awareness, which, if you're following correctly, means watching how the inner lid collects steam and releases it along tiny grooves. Some designed intentionally, others the product of long use. There's even a ritual. Tilt the lid toward a window. Catch the bead of condensation. And name it. You don't do that now. But maybe one day. A final footnote. If steam escapes silently, it is not lost. It has merely chosen another path. You tighten the cap one more time. Then loosen it just a little, half a turn. The way the diagram suggests. 2. Let the rice breathe. If it wishes. You've learned that steam isn't just vapor. Not in this cooker. It's memory in motion. It's how the pot speaks. And tonight, it's whispering just enough. Now we arrive at the most disputed part of the manual, the control lever mechanism. Documented in diagram 9C, which is printed in slightly darker ink than the other pages, as though someone pressed down too hard during photocopying. The lever is deceptively simple. 1 switch, 2 positions, cook and warm. You'd think that would be it. But then again, nothing about this rice cooker is ever just what it appears to be. You examine yours now. The little paddle has worn smooth over the years. It's plastic soft from constant thumb pressure. It clicks downward with a reluctant grace, like an aging librarian opening the same drawer for the 1000th time. Diagram 9C calls this motion the descent phase. It even has a diagram of a tiny hand pressing the switch, accompanied by a gently italicized warning. Commit fully. Hesitation leads to uncertain rice. You've hesitated before. We all have. Half pressing the switch, then changing your mind, only to wonder later if that's why the grains turned out overly shy, soft on the outside, firm in the middle, like they hadn't quite made a decision. There's a theory in the notes section. Grains mirror the confidence of the lever. It sounds absurd, but somehow true. You press yours now. Clean click. A low hum from the base. The red indicator light glows, not bright. Just a muted amber red. Like a distant campfire seen through a foggy lens. According to the chart, the indicator light operates in 3 modes, though only 2 are officially acknowledged. Bright and steady right-pointing arrow, all is well. Flickering right-pointing arrow, possible thermal fatigue. Dim and moody right-pointing arrow, contemplate intentions before proceeding. Yours flickers faintly. You watch it, then you don't. The lever stays down. Now comes the part most people miss, the post-click stillness. The 2 or 3 seconds where the machine recalibrates. Heat gently shifting through its core. Deciding how seriously to take your request. This moment has a name. Buried deep in the manual. Decision pause. You're advised not to speak during it. You oblige. Another diagram, labeled 9F, offers an exploded view of the internal lever spring. It's small, coiled tight, described in the caption as anxiety made physical. This spring, they say, determines the snapback interval, how long the cooker waits before flicking up to warm. And here's where things get mysterious. The manual admits, snapback times vary. The reasons remain unclear. Some batches cook perfectly in 18 minutes. Others take 23. One user reported 47. A technician once recorded a 6-minute cook cycle with perfect results, but could never reproduce it. There's even a flowchart titled, "What to do if the lever returns too soon." Step 1. Check your rice to water ratio. Step 2. Gently scold the cooker. Step 3. Try again with more patience and less doubt. The final box simply says, sometimes, the cooker knows something you don't. You look at your lever again. Still down, still holding. You consider the possibility that the machine is reading you, your intentions. Your rhythm, the weight of your hunger, the softness of your expectations. And you let it. Because the lever isn't just a switch. It's a pact. One that says, if you trust me, I'll try my best. And tonight, that's enough. You step away for a moment, just to stretch. Just to check the window, and when you return, the lever has already popped up. There's no fanfare, no musical chime, just that familiar, muted thunk, followed by the gentle switch from red to amber. Warm mode. The manual refers to this stage as the patient plateau. The rice is done. Or at least, the cooker believes it is. But now comes the hard part, the wait. Diagram 10D outlines this phase with an odd reverence, titling the page, Passive Resting, and the flavor it reveals. The chart features a cartoon grain of rice reclining on a miniature sofa. Steam rising from its tiny loafers. You smile, because you know the drill. You don't open the lid. Not yet, not even a peek. The manual is firm on this point. Disturb not the warm phase within the first 9 minutes. Doing so collapses the grain's emotional posture. You've violated that rule before. And regretted it. There's a long anecdote tucked in the corner of the page. Apparently written by an engineer who once opened too soon and found rice that smelled of doubt and tasted of second thoughts. You glance at your cooker. The amber light pulses slowly. Not electronically, just the result of its filament breathing behind tinted plastic. You imagine the rice inside, taking a moment to regroup, to rehydrate, to reconcile its many textures into one consistent softness. The manual offers optional activities for this phase. Practice gratitude. Name your past 3 meals. Listen for signs of inner balance, non-literal. You do one of these. Maybe 2. Then you turn to page 33, one of the most poetic parts of the entire manual. It's titled, Signs that the Rice Has Settled. It lists subtle indicators. Steam fades, but doesn't vanish. Lid begins to warm from the inside out. Cooker emits one soft exhale, only once. You feel, somehow, that it's time. No timers, no guarantees. Just a shared understanding between pot and person. You place your palm lightly on the lid. It's warm, but not aggressive. A steady comfort, as though the cooker is saying, it's ready when you are. The diagram also warns against overconfidence. Do not rush the lifting of the lid. A hasty reveal scalds more than your fingers. And so you wait another minute. Maybe 2. You remember the time you waited too long. The rice entered the outer firmness phase, still edible, but with a texture that tasted faintly of disappointment. Not failure, just a missed opportunity. The manual compares this to leaving a party right before the best conversation starts. You won't make that mistake tonight. When you finally open the lid, it's not with drama, no plume of steam, no triumphant soundtrack, just a gentle puff. The air inside smells exactly right, soft starch, faint sweetness, a memory of warmth, maybe even a little jasmine. If you're paying close enough attention, you look inside. The rice is whole, plump, holding shape, but inviting. You give the pot a tiny tilt. The grains yield but don't collapse. That's the sign you were hoping for. You reach for the paddle. It's time. But before you scoop, you recall one final bit from diagram 10D. The first spoonful is a greeting, not a harvest. Approach with kindness. You nod to yourself. Because by now, you know, this isn't just dinner. It's a quiet conversation between you and an appliance that's seen more than it lets on. You hold the rice paddle now, not like a tool, but like a pen before the first word. There's something ceremonial about this moment, even if no one's watching. Diagram 11A confirms your intuition. It's called First Scoop Etiquette, Stirring Without Disturbance. The drawing shows a spoon entering the rice at a 45-degree angle. Labeled, Ideal Incline for Gratitude and Narration. A second panel advises, avoid full circle motions. They imply doubt. You ease the paddle into the rice. It's soft but resistant, like the grain still has one last boundary. Not quite ready to surrender its perfect shape. That's a good sign. Too loose, and the rice is overdone. Too stiff, and it didn't rest long enough. You're in that sweet in-between. The manual advises the lift and fold technique. You remember learning it from your grandmother. Long before you ever saw it in print. You thought she made it up. But here it is, on diagram 11B, complete with little arrows and a caption that reads, Treat the grain like a letter from a friend, never tear. Only unfold. So you fold, lift, let the steam rise. You don't blow on it. That would be rude. You let it breathe on its own. As the rice turns over, it reveals gradients, whiter at the center, with pale gold patches toward the edge where it kissed the bottom of the pot. The smell changes too. You swear it deepens. Diagram 11C offers a flowchart titled, Scoop Reaction Interpretations. If the rice clumps too quickly, humidity too high, or emotional clinginess. If the rice falls apart, dryness detected. Possible over-reflection. If the rice pauses on the spoon before falling, moment of clarity. Proceed. Yours pauses. You proceed. You set the first scoop into your bowl, which isn't part of the manual but somehow feels like it should be. Maybe in an appendix, maybe in a hidden chapter. One titled, Companion Ceramics and the Meals That Remember. Back in the pot, you notice a small patch that resisted stirring. It's not burnt, just rooted. The manual calls this area the hearth zone, where the rice holds fast, guarding a little warmth just for itself. You don't force it, you leave it there. You always do. You glance at the next page of the manual and find an odd passage. The cooker is a witness. It does not mind your habits, but it notices your patterns. A little spooky, but not wrong. Your pattern, for instance, 2 scoops. Then a pause. You always pause. You think of things during this moment. The day, the week, that one bird you saw balancing on a phone wire yesterday like it was performing for no one. The cooker's still warm. That amber glow hasn't changed. But now the smell in the room has shifted. Not food anymore, comfort. Completion. The manual calls this the full pot aura. If you look closely at the pot now, you might see tiny cracks in the surface of the rice. Not flaws, just release points. Proof that the heat and the grain worked out their differences. Diagram 11D has a note. Rice reveals its memory in texture. Read it gently. You place the second scoop beside the first. It's a small bowl, but it holds everything. You sit with your bowl now, hands gently cupping its warmth. The rice feels alive, not in the literal sense, of course, but in that quiet, post-steam way where food seems to hold its breath just before it's tasted. The manual doesn't offer many instructions for eating. It assumes that by this stage, you've earned a bit of autonomy. Still, on page 42, there's a page titled, Consumption Guidelines, Honor Without Ceremony. The first line reads, Chew slowly, not because you must, but because the rice deserves to be heard. You take your first bite. It's simple, no garnish, no sauce, just the pure, unfiltered essence of cooked grain. Slightly sticky, lightly aromatic, a softness that meets your teeth with quiet enthusiasm. Diagram 12A shows a cross-section of a single grain post-cooking. It has 3 labeled parts: outer trust, mid-thought, and core intention. You're not entirely sure if that's poetic license or serious thermodynamic labeling. But you don't question it. You chew. There's something soothing about plain rice. It doesn't shout. It doesn't perform. It just exists, reliable, even-tempered, familiar, like a good neighbor who never makes noise but always waves. The manual reminds you not to rush. Eating is the mirror of cooking. Haste creates silence. Patience creates conversation. You try to listen. As the bowl empties, you start noticing details, the faint edge of crispness on one grain, a single fleck of brown from the pot's base, the variation between the top layer and the bottom layer. The rice at the top was steam-kissed, the bottom heat-hugged. Together, they make a whole. Diagram 12B introduces a concept called thermal memory. It suggests that the rice remembers which part of the pot it cooked in, and behaves accordingly. Edge rice leans bold. Center rice leans polite. You find a bold piece. You eat it last. Meanwhile, the rice cooker sits quiet on the counter, lid ajar, its task complete. The manual says nothing about post-use communication, but you offer a small nod anyway. It feels appropriate. On page 43, there's a curious little corner note titled, "Concluding with gratitude, optional gesture." It suggests placing your hand on the lid, breathing in, and saying thank you, not out loud, but somewhere in the space between your breath and your thought. You try it. It's not dramatic, but something about it settles the room. Then, of course, comes the least glamorous part, cleanup. The manual devotes an entire section to it. But not yet. For now, it gives you this. If there is still warmth in the bowl, the story is not yet over. You hold the bowl a little longer. Not because you're still hungry, but because you're not quite ready to let go. Eventually, all warmth becomes memory. You set the empty bowl aside. Quietly, not ceremoniously, not dramatically, just the way you'd put down a book after the last page. Trusting the ending to keep rippling in the background. The rice cooker now sits in its post-service stillness. And this is when the manual politely reintroduces itself. Section 13 is titled, "The Return, Cooling, Cleaning, and Resetting for Future Intentions." It opens with a gentle reminder. Never wash in haste. The cooker has just released a great effort. You lift the lid. It's light now, humid on the underside. You tilt it slightly and let a single drop of condensation fall into the sink, one drop only. As the manual notes this as a cooling gesture. Inside the pot, there's a thin layer of residual rice, clinging in loose patterns along the curve. Not burnt, just rooted. As before, these are the pieces that stayed behind, what diagram 13B refers to as the loyal starch. You scoop them gently into a second bowl. As recommended by page 47. No grain left unseen. These fragments hold the memory of the meal. You might eat them, you might not. That's not the point. Now, to the sink. The manual insists. Room temperature rinse only. Warm water startles the residue. Cold water shames it. So you let the faucet run a few seconds, testing the temperature on the back of your hand like you're bathing a child. Then, with slow circles of your sponge, non-abrasive, always circular, you begin to wipe the inner pot. The motion is hypnotic. The sponge glides like a thought being reworded. Diagram 13C offers a diagram titled, "Ideal Cleaning Spirals." It shows a hand rotating clockwise, with a tiny icon of a heart near the base of the spiral. The caption, "Move toward stillness, not away from it." You smile, because somehow, even cleaning has a rhythm now. After the rinse, you set the pot upside down on a cloth towel. The manual calls this, the breath phase. A time when the pot dries and remembers its emptiness. You take a moment to clean the lid too, tracing the grooves where steam passed just an hour ago. The gasket peels away with a satisfying tug, not too tight, not worn, and you rinse it separately, honoring its quiet labor. You never noticed how soothing this part was. The soft dripping, the muted clinks, The way everything slows down when there's no more heat involved. As the final droplets fall away, the manual gives you one last line for this section. Restoration is a form of reverence. You look at the cooker, not pristine, not polished, just ready. And that's all it ever needed to be. Now that everything's washed, wiped, and back in its rightful place, the kitchen feels quieter than before. Not just because the meal has ended, but because the rice cooker has returned to its dormant state, a square, modest monument to completed tasks. Section 14 of the manual addresses this moment with surprising tenderness. The page title? Storage and sentiment. The pause between uses. You don't stuff it away in a cupboard. No, that wouldn't feel right. You unplug the cord, gently, always gently, and wind it into a loose loop. Just like diagram 14a shows. The instructions advise 3 loops, not tight, no twisting. Let the wire rest like a sleeping vine. You do just that. The plug itself gets a wipe. Not because it's dirty, but because this part of the process is more about attention than necessity. The manual says as much. Even unused elements deserve acknowledgement. You place the cooker on a side shelf. Somewhere visible, accessible, not spotlighted, not hidden, like a book you plan to reread. Now comes the oddest part of this section, the storage orientation chart. Diagram 14b features 3 illustrations of the cooker at rest, one facing forward, one turned slightly to the left, and one angled back. The text explains. Forward equals openness, left equals reflection, back equals reset, and then adds, orientation may affect flavor memory. This is unproven, but widely believed. You turn your unit slightly to the left. Why not? At the bottom of the page, a grayed-out box offers an optional checklist called Post-Cooking Emotional Calibration. It asks you to consider. Did you rush? Did you doubt the process? Did you thank the machine? Did you taste the effort? You don't fill it out, but you read it. That's enough. You notice something new. Your kitchen carries a faint echo now. A soft, starchy hush that lingers even after the pot has cooled. The manual refers to this as the ***, aroma wake, a vaporous memory the cooker leaves behind. Detectable only in quiet kitchens. It's oddly comforting. Then you flip to the last page of the section and find the diagram everyone talks about but few remember in detail, the farewell sketch. Diagram 14c shows a small hand waving at the rice cooker. The cooker, drawn with a simple dotted line smile, appears to bow in return. The caption underneath reads, "Every meal is a dialogue. Even silence speaks volumes." You close the manual softly. You look at the rice cooker one more time. And you nod. Because you both did your part. And you both deserve the pause. Now the manual rests where it began, tucked behind the cooker. Pages slightly curled, spine soft from years of quiet reference. And you? You're not really thinking about rice anymore. Not directly, but it lingers, doesn't it? Like a melody that finished minutes ago but hasn't quite left the room. Section 15 carries the title, Maintenance, Myths, and the Legacy of Heat. You're not doing maintenance tonight. Not really, but it's good to know what's expected. You flip open to diagram 15a, a gently faded cutaway of the heating plate. It's labeled like a memory map. Thermal bloom zone, resistance coil spine, insulated heart plate, do not scrub. You run a soft cloth over the outer rim, one swipe. Then 2. The manual advises. Monthly, even when unused. The machine remembers kindness. That phrase again, as if the cooker has a diary. Maybe it does. Maybe that soft hum it makes when plugged in is its way of recording each gesture. Below the diagram, a list of common myths. If you open the lid mid-steam, the rice will gossip. If you press cook while thinking about someone, they'll visit within 3 days. Jasmine rice causes dreams. Sticky rice causes memory lapses. None of these are verified. All of them feel possible. Next, a maintenance table. Outer shell, wipe with cloth. Inner lid, soak gently. No scrubbing. Power switch, check for hesitation. Indicator light, respect its silence. At the bottom of the page, a final note. Your cooker is not magical, but it's close. You believe that, not because it defies logic, but because it honors it so patiently. The rituals, the waiting, the quiet heat of getting things just right. You sit again, this time without the bowl. Just your hands folded, elbows resting, eyes soft. The room hums in that post-meal way, faint ticking of cooling metal. A single drop of water descending the side of the sink basin. You flip to the final page. There's no index, no glossary, just a sketch. It's not labeled, but it shows a rice cooker on a wooden shelf. Light off, lid closed, with a tiny plume of imagined warmth rising above it, barely a line. Barely visible. And beside it, a tiny text box. Not a warning, not a procedure. Just this. To cook rice is to wait for understanding. You read it once, then again, and then you close the manual. You sit there, for a while, not thinking, not planning, just being. Because maybe that's what the rice cooker has been trying to teach you this whole time. That even small things, done quietly and well, have the power to change the shape of a moment. And now, with the cooker silent and the kitchen hushed, you let your breathing slow. The light is low, the night is deeper than it was when we started. And there's a quiet comfort in the fact that some machines don't beep or flash or demand anything from you. They just wait, content to be used. Content to rest. You think about the rhythm of it all, the fill, the press, the steam, the silence, how every stage had a pause, a breath, a patience built into the process. And somehow, you feel that in your own body now, as though you followed the recipe. Not for rice, but for rest. There's nothing left to clean tonight. Nothing urgent, just the gentle echo of warmth in the room. The sense that something was done with care, and that care, once given, tends to linger. Maybe you hear the soft click of the clock, or the whisper of a fan across the floor, or maybe just your own thoughts. Finally settled, you let your eyes close now. Or not. Doesn't matter. The cooker's off. The rice is eaten. The manual, for all its diagrams and doubts, did its job. And so did you. You made space. You followed the steps. You listened. Now the only instruction left is this. Rest.